Yes, depending on how long this delay is. Here it comes. I'm just going to get into it. What's up? Thursday, October 24th, coming into the third day, oh, good God, of the regular season. 3-gamer. I'm excited for the season to get started. I looked into the schedule a little bit, and like the Tuesdays and Thursdays start to pick up in games. It's like 5s and 6s instead of 2s and 3s, which I'm pretty excited about. For those of you that are new, and we have been picking up quite a bit of viewers, so I do want to do the intro correctly for the second time now. I am Josh Engelman. I am joined by Adam Scher, a.k.a. Ship My Money. So far, completely uneventful first 2 days of the NBA season for me. What about you?
Yeah, same here. I've been pretty happy with how my lineups have turned out. It's just, there's been one or two guys that hold me back, but that's going to happen. It's more about just, especially at this point in the season, it's for me more about just kind of making sure I'm getting lineups that I'm happy with and didn't totally forget how to do this.
I definitely totally forgot how to run crunches at like a midpoint of yesterday. Because the first day was just like, okay, I'm just going to have a lot of guys. It really doesn't, whatever I set my settings to don't really matter. Like they matter, but there were 2 games. Like you're getting everybody in abundance. It's really hard to notice your stuff. When you run a crunch on an 11-game slate, it's really when you start to see the way that people end up coming into your lineups. Those first couple I ran, I was like, oh, cool. I've got 120 guys in my player pool and nobody more than 20%. So this is just, might as well just, it's fully random. It took me a little bit to get my tweaks in. Had to write it down in the old trusty DFS details notebook, but we got there. I've got lineup study pulled up for yesterday, so we can take a look at that. But first and foremost, we need to get into our sponsor, Yahoo Sports. They are the presenting sponsor of this show, of the Deeper Dive, of the Early Bird podcast. If you want to check out what they have to offer, I'm going to drop the link to Emacs Cash article. This is yesterday's. He does an article every day, but the information to sign up at Yahoo is at the top of this article. If you click that link, use the promo code AWESEMO, you can get up to $30 in Yahoo Sports rewards points. They do now have CSV import. Not all of their contests are 150 max, but the biggie in the NFL season, the baller is a 150 max. They're running no management fee contests almost every day. They are without question, the best contest you can get into in the industry. Being able to chop off a management fee off the top is a massive boon to your profitability. So if you're someone that plays a limited amount of money in a given day, I think that Yahoo is the place that you should be playing, and particularly in the no management fee contest. Even in their normal contests, they're withholding a little bit less than some of the other sites in the industry. So anytime that you can just save right off the bat, I highly recommend it. Check out the information in the Emacs article to sign up. You could also sign up at awesemo.com using the promo code NBA Strategy. One big word. You can get 50% off your first month of Awesemo Plus. We are churning out like an absolutely incredible amount of content on a day-to-day basis. NBA has just been nuts. One of the biggest new features we have for our premium subs for the NBA. During the work week, we've got the boss man, Alex Baker, Awesemo himself, 4 o'clock Eastern time, doing a live 30-minute show for the subs, taking a look at some of his crunches and what he does to go about building them. I watched it yesterday. It's a fantastic insight into the number 1 player in the world. So that is just one of many perks you can get, and you can get all of them using the promo code NBA Strategy. Let's take a peek at lineup study. The 150 maxers did a little bit better today than they did on opening day. A lot of familiar names at the top. Chipotle, FJ Bourne. I see 1-800-EDDIE flying in there with just 75 entries, but finished 10th. Brick finished 11th. Lots and lots of familiar names here at the top. The most exposed player on DraftKings in the $10 yesterday. Any guesses?
In the $10, Morris.
Second, Karl Anthony Towns, numero uno. That's kind of surprising to me. I mean, not that I'm surprised that it was Towns. He was the highest projected player on the slate for me. But just given his price and the price of some other guys, I wouldn't have been surprised if a value piece pushed ahead. But you got exactly what you were looking for out of Carl Towns, 73.5 fantasy points. Only problem is Andre Drummond went ahead and dropped 78 and a quarter. Played monster minutes in game one on the back-to-back today, which we will get into. Keefe, 32.7% owned. Not what you were looking for. Not a murderous spot in your lineup, but not exactly what you wanted. And then Luka Doncic, third, 52.75. I assume you were in this contest?
In the $10, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's pull you up here. There's Ship My Money. We'll add him. And then we'll add the boss man, Alex Baker. 70% Karl Anthony Towns. I bet that felt pretty tasty.
Yeah, that wasn't bad.
42% Drummond as well. It's a pretty solid combination. Very light on Luka, your boy too. I'm sure he took that as a personal front, but only 15 there. Alex also very low on Luka last night, which I think was probably to both of your benefits. Alex went really big on Luke Kennard, 72%. Was he his most owned guy? Was indeed. Most owned guy, Luke Kennard. 60% Dennis Schroeder as well. Alex went hard in the paint. You had Towns and Winslow as your top two guys. Any thoughts coming back from yesterday's slate? Anything you wish you would have done a little different?
Obviously had less DeMar DeRozan, but I was happy with the play, and I think that even in hindsight, I'm okay with it because I think the reason why I got so much was the Ford eligibility. Like, he was only 7,200 on DraftKings. He had a good matchup against the Knicks. And even though, because at first I was like, why am I getting so much DeRozan when there are so many good shooting guards on the slate? But the answer is that, he can just play so many positions on DraftKings. So I think in hindsight, that's fine. Myers Leonard was, I'm not really upset about that one. Like, he was 3,100. He picked up 3 first half fouls. He played a bunch of minutes in the preseason, got the start in this game. No Jimmy Butler. He kind of had to play minutes if he wasn't in foul trouble. So I think that was a perfectly fine spot, especially because he was low owned. The one thing I think I messed up was that I should have gotten to more Kendrick Nunn from Miami, but I was overall pretty happy with how my stuff turned out.
Did you late swap to more Nunn?
No.
Okay. Yeah, I was already, I played on FanDuel, so that ship had already sailed once that news came out.
Yeah, the reason I didn't late swap was just that I had so much exposure to Detroit guys and to guys that, guys that had already started.
Yeah.
I didn't want to just completely torpedo my lineups to get Kendrick Nunn in.
Right. When push comes to shove, he is still Kendrick Nunn. And, while you want to get to more of him, there's still a limit to what you want to do. And the amount of work you have to take to make it feel right is probably not worth the amount of time that it's going to take you to make those changes. Because you could run that crunch. You can run a late swaptimizer crunch, adding Kendrick Nunn, and get way too much of him if you're not paying close attention after you make those changes. Because he's gonna come up as a value that really didn't exist previous to that.
Yeah, and the other thing is that, and again, it's the reason for why I had so much more Leonard than Nunn. Nunn was a guard, Leonard was a forward. Yeah. And Ford, I think, was just the weaker position on the slate. So it's not even like, I could have just said I have 33% Myers Leonard. Let me make more of that Nunn, because it's different positions.
Can we talk about Lauri Markkanen for a second?
He's good.
Whew. Sometimes I forget how good he is. He's sneaky good. I don't know if it's just because of being on the Bulls. The craziest part of his game is that he could have really smashed. He shot poorly from 3, which is the one thing you don't I think he was 1 for 8, 1 for 9, something like that. Maybe even worse than that. He was 0 for 6 at one point.
1 for 7.
Is that what it was? That's
13 for 25 from the field, but 1 for 7 from 3.
Yeah. That's a
really bad preseason too. That's good to see.
That's 6 more points. Well, 7 more points on DK if he just hits 2 of those, which isn't outside the realm of possibility for Lauri Markkanen. So, other big scorers: Julius Randle, Donovan Mitchell. Well, somebody had to soak it up for Utah since Mike Conley laid an egg. I had a lot of Mike Conley yesterday. I grab my box score data from Basketball Reference each morning. That was where I originally got my scraper from. and they have a game score column as like the final column in the list. Mike Conley, dead last yesterday's slate. That one stung pretty bad. Any surprising performances from yesterday? I have everybody sorted by fantasy points. There aren't really any names at the top where you're like, how in the world did that guy get 40? Devontae Graham, I guess. But
I thought for the most part the slate went pretty much according to plan, and that's why you saw such high scores. I think you might have said it. I was talking, I didn't hear you, but did you say Devontae Graham?
Yeah, Devontae Graham, 42.5 points. He was in 114 of 65,000 lineups.
Yeah, Devontae Graham essentially replacing Terry Rozier to close the game in the first game of the season was a little bit of a surprise.
Yeah, really excited to see. Like, a lot of what I'm seeing has really no relevance to DFS, but just really exciting from a basketball perspective. DeJounte Murray went for 41.5 yesterday. Like, I'm just really excited to see a young dude come back off of an injury and have like a productive game to start. I think he's good, and I'm anxious to see where he ends up. 3 Sixers, 45.5, 44.25, 43.75. Simmons, Harris, Embiid, all directly next to each other when sorting by fantasy points. Similarly, Sabonis, Turner, Brogdon, 46, 46, 46, essentially. 3 guys just right in a row. So nice little bunches. Sacramento, or Phoenix actually, putting 3 guys directly in a row in terms of fantasy points. That doesn't mean anything. It just looks interesting on the screen. Top lineup yesterday, 417.25 DK points, which a lot. Scoring's high. Public service announcement for right now before we get into these games. To everybody that's just like, I scored 350 and didn't cash or whatever. Just because you used to score some sort of amount of points 5 years ago doesn't mean like it's a requirement now. It's every slate's different. You're playing relative to everyone else. Whatever you do on other slates doesn't matter. Get the old scoring system out of your head now. If there's 65,288 people in that contest, in the grand scheme of things, you have the same odds as before. There's just more information and it's harder.
Yeah, and teams play faster, especially at the beginning of the season. So you're just going to get higher scores.
Yeah.
But it's not, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. I hate
like
that
players
comment.
Are scoring. Not only are people better at DFS, but players just score more points. Like we had 3 people go above 70 points last night.
Yeah.
That didn't really used to happen.
No, not at all. Like not in the slightest.
Yeah, I think the only way that totals or overall scores really matter is I will definitely say that on really high scoring nights, I'm not going to win. But that's just because of the style that I play.
Alrighty. Top lineup: Kendrick Nunn, Luke Kennard, Taurean Prince, my guy, Sabonis, Drummond, Mitchell, Winslow, Towns. Just,
it seems so easy to get to in hindsight.
Yeah, I mean every one of those guys is someone that like I would have wanted.
Yeah, it's not like you had to have Devontae Graham to win.
Right. Prince. I like. Obviously, I'm a fan of Prince. I mentioned it on 2 separate shows yesterday. Him going for 40, not exactly what I was expecting. I was watching that game for a big chunk of the second quarter. Every single time I was watching, Kyrie got a bucket. I thought he had like 30 at one point. And I look at the score. Every time I looked at it, it was just Kyrie. They were down 15. I was like, how does he keep... What are they doing on the other end? Is it just like constant 4-point plays? Every single time he touched the ball, he scored, and they just kept getting beat worse and worse. I mean, obviously, they came down to him missing a buzzer beater, but...
Yeah, so 2 other takeaways that I'd forgotten about from yesterday, both also Charlotte related, which I guess makes sense since they're possibly the worst team in the league. But no, we didn't really know what to do with PJ Washington's minutes because we had a quote from their GM from like 2 days ago saying that he was going to play 15 to 22 minutes, and then they started him 38 minutes for PJ Washington. So once again, generally can just ignore coach speak in the NBA. But also Dwayne Bacon, I had mentioned on the Deeper Dive show yesterday, I wanted to see how he looked offensively because he actually led this team in usage in the preseason. 21 field goal attempts for Dwayne Bacon in 33 minutes.
Yeah, he looked really good. Was a great punt play. It was a guy that I had my eye on as well. So
It was 5,300 on DraftKings. So
he was not even remotely close to that on FanDuel.
yeah.
Let me just double check what it was. He was 3,600 on FanDuel. Quite owned as well. I had a ton until the Jimmy Butler news came in. Like Bacon was the guy that I was paying down for. Would have liked for that to continue, but shout out Tyler Hero. Well, time to break down this 3-gamer. 2 of these games are fun. One of them a little bit less so. You ready?
Yep.
Here we go. Pistons and Hawks. 111.5 implied total for the Pistons. 110.5 for the Hawks. Pistons on the back-to-back, obviously played last night. So that'll be an interesting piece to keep an eye on. Let's start on the Pistons side. 10-3 on FanDuel, 8,300 on DK, 15K on FantasyDraft, and $47 on Yahoo. We going right back to Andre Drummond?
Yeah, and there's a couple of ways you can look at it. You mentioned that he played 40 minutes last night, and now it's a back-to-back. So sure, there's some chance that his minutes come down. The flip side to that is in his post-game interview, they kind of asked him about how much he played, and he was like, I worked really hard this offseason knowing that I was going to play more minutes this year, and blah, 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 I'm in better shape.
Yeah.
And so, I think like it was by design, I think, that he played so many minutes last night. It's not like something weird happened and he had to be out there. They were just taking him off the floor for a minute and throwing him right back in. But on top of that, at 8,300 on DraftKings and even a little over 10K on FanDuel, let's say he plays 35 minutes instead of 40, like you're still fine. He still last year without Griffin on the floor had a usage rate over 25%, had a rebounding percentage up at 27%. Like he's still a great play in 34 or 35 minutes. The fact that he could play 38 to 40 is just kind of icing.
Yeah, I don't know what to think of them. It shouldn't matter that it's a back-to-back, at least not at the beginning of the season. So doesn't seem like the public